Okay, Arman joins me from Los Angeles. Arman, thank you very much for joining me today. Tell us a little bit about your business. Where are you at now, and where do you want to move to in terms of the kind of work you're doing?
Yeah, so my business, we're a kitchen and bath contractor in Los Angeles, California, and I've been in business for about 10 years. We have a showroom location, and we recently got into manufacturing our own product as well. In the past 2 years ago, pretty much, we set up our own custom shop where we manufacture our own cabinetry um, for our clients, and we're getting into a little bit of a different market from where we were going before. But now we're trying to get into a little bit of a higher end market. So we're trying to shift our business and the idea of our business, the image of our business as well. When you showed us the opportunity to get on the call, I was interested because
Mm.
we're currently working on updating our website as we're transitioning our business model. And I think it'd be a great way to kind of incorporate a story tactic into our website and our
Like I
overall
said, what, I,
image.
what I'd like to do is just to do a very quick screen share and to just pull up your current website. So this is polarishhomedesign.com, and this is the kitchens page. But if I just go to the home page and look through the home page, and what we're seeing basically is, yeah, it's a big retail space. This is your retail store in LA, yes, on the home page. So basically, as anybody who walks into a kitchen and bathroom store knows, it's full of baths and taps and sinks and obviously items. Okay, then you break it down as you go down into different categories: kitchens, bathrooms, bathtubs, countertops, toilets, tiles. Okay, so this is all exactly what I would expect to see on a website such as this. And if you go to the kitchen page, again, it's broken down by custom kitchens, traditional, modern, etc., etc. Okay, interestingly, and then there's some really technical stuff about soft close hinges and undermount glides. I mean, interestingly, and this is not unique to you, I've seen this in most similar websites, there are no people anywhere in these pictures. So these the very stylish bedrooms and bathrooms we can see, and the very stylish kitchens, but there's never any actual people in. And what usually happens is that if companies like yourself decide to put people in them into the picture, then they usually go for kind of very very high end models, sort of people who, and they're not actually cooking, they're just arranging food in a, so they're all very glamorous, they're not actually real people in the
Yeah,
photographs then, and they're certainly not real customers, which I think is quite interesting. Because when we look at a website, I don't know if you look at, are you familiar with the eye tracking analysis? What they do is they sit somebody down in front of a screen and they watch where their eyes go on the page when they open up a website. And the first thing people's eyes go to, almost always, is human faces, because we find faces really fascinating. So even if your website is like selling shoes, right? Then the model wearing the shoes, we're looking at his or her face before we're looking at their feet, which I think is really interesting because most people are very fascinated by people. So there's a
yeah,
huge,
program that.
yeah, we are programmed that way, yeah. So I think there's a huge opportunity here. Now, clearly, we are also interested when we're looking at your website. We're interested in taps and tiles and faucets and this sort of thing. But subliminally, perhaps not without even realizing, we're interested in people. So that's an interesting opportunity there. And you were saying before we started recording that you want the new site to be much more customer centric, much more customer focused, and much more about the journey the customer's going on.
Yeah,
Excuse me. So that for me says, well, okay, there's a real potential here. Now, how long have you been in business?
about 10 years.
Okay, fantastic. If you were to go back into your order book from 10 years ago, would you be able to get in touch, do you think, with any of your customers from, say, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago? And there's a reason why I'm asking this. But would you be able to, do you think, pick up the phone or email or pop round to customers who bought a kitchen, say, for example, from you 10 years ago?
But from 10 years ago, I think so. 10 years is kind of far back.
Yeah, well, seven. So the reason why I mentioned this, there's a card in the deck, in the Storyteller deck, which is called Simple Sales Stories. It's a really kind of basic, card for well, people who need to sell. And on the back, it sort of talks about the kind of stories that work in sales terms. And the easiest one of all is someone like you buys this product. Okay. And what you effectively say, if you're talking to a customer who's thinking of spending 50,000 on a kitchen, right? Well, what you want to be able to do is go, look, this customer over here, she spent $50,000 on a kitchen. Look how happy she is. And then what you're saying is, so you're not going to tell them the story of the customer who spent $15,000 on a kitchen, because that's not where they're at. So you're trying to match your customers up. And so that's kind of,
Yeah.
but within that, or further down the back of the card, it suggests certain types of customers make for really good stories. And in this instance, the customer who makes a really good potential story is your old customers, as in a long time ago. So here's why. When you're selling something expensive like a bathroom or a kitchen unit, you don't really want to be competing on price, because there's always going to be somebody cheaper. So there'll be a Chinese import company bringing stuff
Yep.
in that's cheaper. And you can say to people, look, ours is better. It's better quality, it'll last longer. But when I'm looking at them, if I've got them like one tap in this hand and one tap in that hand, and I'm looking at them and I'm going, well, they're both chrome. What's the difference? This one is 30% cheaper than that one. Why should I go for this one? And the answer, the answer. The answer is, in 5 years' time, this one will be pitted and starting to rust, and this one will look as good as new. You know the answer to that.
Yeah.
And you can tell your customer that. Imagine a story where you went back to somebody who you fitted their bathroom 7 years ago, and you persuaded them to get good quality components and fittings, and they did. And you go back to them 7 years later and you say, "Hey guys, do you mind just telling me how you're getting on, everything?" And they say it's as good as new. Right. So imagine that as a story that you could actually put on your website. We bought a bathroom, we bought a kitchen from these guys 8 years ago, and it still looks as good as the day they fitted it. Okay,
Yeah.
because what you do when you're saying to people, look, we're going to give you a 5-year guarantee. Do you give a guarantee on your stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
How many years?
So on the cabinetry that we manufacture in-house by
Mm-hmm.
ourselves, we have a
Yeah,
lifetime warranty.
lifetime warranty. Brilliant. Okay. Okay. Well, that's great. But imagine, so lifetime warranty is basically it's like you making a promise about the future. So you're
Yeah.
saying, whatever happens, we promise this will be okay. But I just have to believe you, right? And other people might be making promises too. A story about somebody 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago who says, this is still really good. There's no disbelieving that. In the one hand, I have to trust. If you're talking about the future, I have to trust you. When you point to the past, I can see it. So
Right.
yeah. So that's one area where you can start thinking about, okay, which customer stories are we telling? Right. Can we go back into our order book and dig, right? And think of a job that we did that was really, we put in a really good quality. Okay. That's all right. So dig into your contacts book, dig into your order book, and go, right, who can we go back to? Well, we put in a really good piece of equipment. We put in some really high quality stuff. It should be good as new if we go back there. Okay, is it? And imagine how powerful that story would be. You can write it, you're writing it now in your own head. Yeah. A man, Polaris fitted this kitchen 6 years ago. It's still as good as new. Boom.
Got
Right.
it. And through
Yeah.
through what media do you recommend like telling that kind of a story? Is it through text or a video, like testimonial, or?
Well, I think if you I mean obviously if you're going to turn up at someone's house and you turn up with a bottle of wine and a bunch of flowers and a box of chocolates and whatever and say look, thank you for letting us in. What look there's the Hollywood version. Let's work our way down from the Hollywood version down to to it's okay. The Hollywood version would be a video testimonial with husband and wife and kids in the kitchen saying, yeah, we fitted this 7 years ago. We've used it every single day. It's absolutely brilliant. It's as good as the day we bought it. Video, yeah, shot nicely, decent sound. So you turn up with a little camera. You can do it on your iPhone, but you turn up and you film it in a nice. Okay, that's the Hollywood version. But equally, a photograph of said family, yeah, in their kitchen with some text is just as good, because you get it straight away. 25 words of text against a photograph. That's also very good. Come down another level, just the text. Mr. and Mrs. Dominguez said they, blah, 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 just the text. Well, that's okay as well. But really, 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 truly, if you can get a photograph of a real customer in a real kitchen that you fitted saying nice things about your product,
Yeah.
the power is there because we're reading the face. And and we're looking and going, look, she buys the same olive oil as me. We're doing all that sort of stuff
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's a real person. It's not just a showroom. So yeah, if it's worth turning up with a bunch of flowers, box of chocolates, whatever, and it's worth it. Okay.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I never thought about it from that perspective.
Yeah, and also think about it. If, okay, so here's the other thing to think about with testimonials. How many different suppliers do you reckon you have in your company, from your broadband through to your bathrooms? How many different suppliers do you work with, roughly?
A lot. I mean, maybe like 100.
Okay. Have you ever written a testimonial for any of them to say that? No, of course you haven't, because you're busy. Okay. So if you don't ask for it and don't make the effort to get the testimonial, nobody will do it because we're busy, right? And we go, this bathroom's ace, but I'm not going to write you a testimonial just because we're not. We're busy. So you have to make the effort, and you can't even say to somebody on the phone, look, would you mind writing me a testimonial? Because A, they probably won't. B, they might just go 5-star, brilliant. That's it. If you want that story of best, right, here's the Hollywood version, right? We came to Arman's company with a problem. They were brilliant, and it's been fantastic ever since. We did wonder whether we should spend £50,000 on this kitchen, but I'm so glad we went for the higher. That's the sort of the Hollywood version you want. Okay, but you're only going to get that by you've got to do some of the work.
Yeah.
And you've got to be really nice to people who do it for you. And when people, when somebody is willing to do that little testimonial for you, it's a bunch of flowers and a box of chocolates at least to say thank you. Okay, so that's the first thing. So in Storyteller Tactics terms, that's simple sales stories. And there's also a card in the deck called Social Proof, which again is kind of touching on what we're talking about here, which is we look at other people all the time. So when we're making purchasing decisions, social proof is really, really important. What kind of person, how many people have already bought this, and so that the social proof card is very, very useful for you here. And on the back, again near the bottom, there's a little section on how to approach a testimonial to get the best out of the testimonial. So those two cards are well worth looking at. Okay, now you said before that you're working towards getting into kind of bespoke kitchen making, yes?
Yes.
Okay. So tell me, what's the typical what would you say is a typical customer kind of inquiry when they come to you, and why are they wanting something bespoke as opposed to something from the showroom?
Generally, mostly because of the fit. Because in our business, there's two ways of doing it. You could either go like bespoke, custom,
Mm-hmm.
or you
Mm-hmm.
go kind of like the imported Chinese, whatever, exactly what you're saying, option. But the issue with that is that when you go the cheaper route, usually you're very limited in colors and finishes. And when we like, for example, in the kitchen, when we're building a kitchen, we're kind of limited to what the manufacturer. We have to build your kitchen. We have to design your kitchen based off what the manufacturer offers. Versus
Yeah. So you,
versus when we go bespoke, we're we're designing it based off of your needs and your kitchen space. So that's
do you think there's been a change in the last 4 years since the pandemic? Are people spending more time at home, and therefore the quality of the home environment matters more?
I think so because during the pandemic, like we had a big boom in our business and a lot of I think a lot of people were working from home, spending a lot of time at home. So they wanted to feel good when they're home. They wanted to enjoy home versus, when they go to work, you just go to work, spend most of your day there, come home, eat and sleep. So
Yeah, totally, totally. No, I think that's very true. I mean, as I'm sure the people who are in the kind of home office um, market have done incredibly well in the last 4 years. Okay, now there's another suggestion on the back of the Simple Sales Stories card. So we talked about the importance of old customers. You fitted this 8 years ago, it's still good. That's priceless. Tricky customers. Okay, that's interesting. Now, by tricky customers, in your line of work, I'm sure that there's kind of two kinds of tricky customer. The first one is someone who's got a really kind of weird shaped house, or they've inherited some whatever. They've got a kind of weird shape that they're trying to fit into. So either, I mean, what's housing stock like in Los Angeles? Are people quite cramped for space, or is that more of a San Francisco problem?
That's probably more San Francisco and like New York problem, but there's still
Mm,
times we deal with like awkward shapes, like angled walls and curved walls, and so it doesn't happen
mm,
that often, but we do deal with it.
yeah.
Or
Okay.
sometimes just very small kitchens, but people want to get a lot out of it. Those are also very tough. To try to make a small space functional can be tough.
Mm, Okay, so these ones where you've got a really tricky layout, and you walk in there and you go, yeah, whew, right, okay. Well, two things, interesting things happen here. Well, two things. One is you actually really enjoy working on those kitchens. And this is my guess because, okay, there's engineers and designers working with you. What do engineers and designers love? They love a tricky problem. They don't just like doing the same thing over and over again. They like to. So, do you cook? Are you a sort of a chef yourself? Do you cook at home?
Uh, Not much, personally.
Okay, okay. It's all right. I have to. Okay, but see, for me, kitchen is the most important room in the house, and because I love to, I do food prep, and so so to get the kitchen working right is such a big deal. For me anyway. And so I can. Okay, so there's something interesting here around the tricky story. This kitchen, frankly, was a nightmare. Yeah, because curved walls or a sloping floor or whatever, and the customer was expectations were sky high, and it gave us a real challenge. Obviously there was going to be a but. Gave us a real challenge, but we sorted it out. We fixed it. So I think there's something really useful about thinking about your old customers, yes, definitely, but also think about your tricky customers. Here's a question: you may not have any of these in your business. Do you get people who bought from you once and then come back and buy from you again?
I I have, yeah. It doesn't happen as often because the type of business we're in. Like usually, you don't do a kitchen that often. But I have had where either they bought another house and they came back to us, or they did a house for their daughter, and then like this happened.
Oh,
She did a house for their daughter. She liked how we did their job, and then they came in. They did a much bigger, much nicer project for their own house a year later.
right. Okay. Again, those are dynamite stories for you. Dynamite customer stories for this simple reason is that, being really cynical about it, a good sales team can sell any crap to anyone once, but you can't sell it twice. So that story is, you've just told it to me brilliantly. We booked Polaris to do my daughter's kitchen. They made such a great job of it. A year later, no debate. They were the ones for the job. Great. So just again, the social proof element of that story is so powerful because it's a real person making a real decision and then going and making an even bigger decision. Yeah. Okay. So those are all kind of dynamite stories, really. So that card there will help you find which of those stories you should be telling.
Which card is that?
Sorry, they're simple sales stories.
Oh, simple sauce. Okay.
Yeah. So that's the one to go for. And then of course, if you've got any famous customers, then that's obviously a different matter altogether because they add another layer of social proof. But tricky kitchens are quite interesting. And I think there are two story when we're talking about sort of thinking about story structure of, okay, if you want to go into a bit more detail on the customer journey. Okay, so somebody comes to us with a desire for a dream kitchen and what happens. Okay, so there's two kind of ways of thinking about it in this case, and these are the story structure cards, which are hang on a second, story structure cards are the cards with the blue edge around them, and they kind of give you an idea of how to structure the story, what sort of beats the story should have. Now, the obvious one, and the one that most businesses use most of the time, is a version of the rags to riches story. Okay, and the rags to riches story essentially is Customer has a problem, we solve it. So you go from a bad place to a good place. There's an added kind of twist to it, to a really good rags to riches story, which is customer has a problem. The problem is not just they don't really like their kitchen, yeah, or their kitchen's a bit, a bit old and tatty. It's not really that. It's something that's kind of there's something hidden, some hidden value that's not being, fully realized. By the time that work is done, they are very happy because they can now show something that they couldn't show before. So, they had a kind of culinary talent that, yeah, and now they can really, in my case, it'd be now they can really get the chopping board out and really go to town. Or they didn't like bringing people round because they thought the kitchen was cramped, and now they've got friends coming over, or the kids couldn't sit and have a family meal together, and now we can sit together as a family. So there's something emotional about the improvement.
Yeah, yeah.
Rather than just, well, they've gone from formica to granite. Well, that doesn't matter. What matters is they've gone from something that they always wanted inside, and then they've got it where they want to, where they can share it and show it and see it. So the rags to riches is a really good way of thinking about that customer journey. And what's kind of interesting about rags to riches is it shouldn't be too easy, as in, you don't want to make it sound like it was just a question of going in the catalogue and going, yeah, and doing it, because projects are never like that. And so it should be like, well, yeah, there's some work involved to get from there to there. And also the better the improvement you're talking about, from I hate this kitchen, it's dark, it's dingy, it's into I love this kitchen, my friends are coming around all the time, they love it too. Yeah, if you want to make that transformation, you've got to make it feel like it was hard work. Yeah, but it's worth it. Okay, so that's a nice structure for the basic customer story, rags to riches.
I've had a lot of customers. Oh, like I was scared to have, like, I would never have my friends over. Like we couldn't invite people over until we redid the kitchen. So I've heard that story from my clients a lot.
Yeah. So again, when you're thinking about those clients who you've heard that from, you think, okay, well, I need to go back to them, right? And I need to ask them, look, would you mind just sitting down with me? Maybe I'll record something on a little smartphone video or whatever, but just sit down with me in the kitchen and talk me through that. So before and after, yeah. So how did you feel about the kitchen before? How do you feel about it now? Right, that's it. That's rags to riches. Very, very straightforward. There is another card which is a little, which you don't often see businesses use this story, which is interesting because this is actually the real story of every project you ever work on, right? And the story, this structure is called Man in a Hole. And if you look on the back of the card, rather than going from a kind of bad place to a good place in this nice sort of straight line, it goes from, okay, we think we know what we're doing, that's gone wrong, let's fix it. And I think in any kind of building project ever, there's going to be an element of stuff goes wrong. So last time I had any work done on a kitchen, and I had my budget and I had the builder's schedule and all this kind of thing. And as they started lifting the floor, they discovered a great big hole under the floor, right, that had to be filled in, and that basically stopped them working, added to the cost, blah blah blah. Oh, right, but that's what it's like.
Eh,
Every job has that moment. There's a surface level understanding, right, where you walk in and you go, yeah, okay, well, I can see what we can do here, right? You do your best possible job, yeah, at surface level, but you never know what you're going to find when you start ripping things out, right? And then, so there's always, with most jobs, going to be oh no, look at this, oh God, right? A friend of mine is a bathroom fitter, and he was fitting enormous tiles, like sort of gigantic tiles on the wall, like 3 feet by 2 feet tiles. And he
yeah,
dropped one, and it slipped and just went straight through it, actually just sliced through the shower tray that he just fitted. And so, yeah, so okay, so we all hit these moments.
yeah,
But so here's the thing: when you have gone into that kind of state, I'm just going to a piece of paper. So two things happen. So this is you, and you've got your plan, right? Doing what you normally do, and then okay, something goes wrong, and so you rip something out or whatever, you drop a tile, doesn't matter. Okay, something goes wrong. The thing you thought was going to work isn't working. Now, companies will do two things. Cowboy companies will cover it up, yep, and pretend it was all meant to be that way all along, and that story just stays down. That's a failure story. It's like a downfall story. Just you've just basically lying now to the customer to cover up the fact, or worse than that, you blame the customer. Well, why didn't you tell us there was rot in the timber? Well, the customer didn't know. Okay, but good companies fix it,
Right.
right? And then you turn the tragedy into a redemption by fixing the thing that went wrong, even though it wasn't your fault, right? Well, it may have been your fault. It may have just been one of those things, just bad luck. But the point is, you fix it.
Right.
So these stories don't often get told publicly because, well, people don't like admitting that they ever do anything wrong. But if you can find a way of telling that story, think about how much more realistic you sound as a company. We cannot guarantee that every project will go exactly to plan, but when anything goes wrong, we fix it. We don't walk away.
Yeah.
Versus a company saying everything we do is perfect. Well, who do you believe? That's an interesting way to think about how you kind of approach telling these stories. Yes. Okay. Any thoughts? Any questions? Anything that you're thinking? Observations so far?
No, these are all really good, and I never even thought about it in this like way. So I get the story that I have to tell. I'm just wondering like how do I tell the story? Like how do I tell a story, right? Who do I tell it
Mm.
to? Do I tell it to the
Yeah.
client who walks in and I tell him, hey, we had this experience? Or do I, through social media? Like how do you what do you recommend for like telling stories?
Well, it's good. I think you've identified two. I mean, look, there's lots of different ways, lots of different places. I mean, we've looked at your just briefly at your website. We haven't looked at your social media. We don't have time. But even so, looking at your website, it's quite obvious that you're not really telling any stories. You're just showing products. Okay, so you could think about, okay, so where's the space on our website for testimonials, for like a customer case study? So a testimonial could be 20 or 30 words. A case study could be, you know, 200 words or a bit of video. It certainly they should both be visual, as in be photographs, so we can see the person. So you think, okay, well, there's an area on the website where we could call it our story or our customers, or even on that home page, if you're trying to move into from showroom into bespoke, right? Well, then those testimonials are going to be really powerful to get you into, to bring more, because you want to get more customers like them. So okay, so that's one thing on web. Different social media platforms have different patterns and different ways that they reward. So obviously Instagram is going to be very big in your business. Instagram allows you photographs and video, with photographs and text, video and text. So Instagram is definitely a possibility. Likewise, YouTube and on and on and on. And I'm sure TikTok is big as well in your line of work now too. With all of those platforms, the main thing to think about is, well, who are we trying to reach? Are they on that platform? Is this What are we trying to say? So, for example, there's all sorts of things around. So the customer. So there's kind of feel like if there's a kind of base level of storytelling, which I think you and all of your staff who you work with should be able to, kind of certain base level of storytelling, which is telling customer stories in conversation. So in the showroom, you should be able to drop into oh gosh. So what you should be able to do is listen to a customer in conversation for long enough that you can kind of locate where they're at. Right?
Yeah.
What are they looking for? Yeah. And then you should be able to quickly drop into a story of someone similar to them. And so you and all your staff should be able to do that. And that might mean, I mean, I don't know how often do you guys get together and sit down and share information in a meeting or a social event? How often do you do that?
I mean, we're a pretty small team, so we don't have like structured meetings, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of like sit with them and we have a discussion, kind of like impromptu.
Right. Okay. That's good. That's nice. So listen, what I might suggest to you then is try taking these two cards, right? So simple sales story and rag to riches. And if you like, just sort of photocopy them and blow them up, put them on the office wall. Yeah. And use them as a kind of guide of, right, we need for every customer we've dealt with, yeah, we should be able to tell one of these stories, a simple sales story or a rags to riches story for that customer. And not only should you be able to tell stories about the customers you've personally dealt with, but you should know your colleagues' stories too, because they're probably sitting on really good stories as well. So how do you share them? Do you write them down? When you recruit somebody new to join your team, that man or woman is going to be desperately hungry for those stories. So do you write them down? I don't know. But maybe you should think about writing them down. And there's a card, by the way, there's a card covering exactly this. This is a kind of an organization card called Story Bank, which is, as an organization, do you keep a story bank where you write stuff down? Because think about him hiring a new sales member of staff, yeah, or think about hiring a marketing person. They are going to need those stories, and they're all in your head. You don't need to write them down because they're in your head. Anyone else does? Okay, so that's worth thinking about. But use simple sales stories and rags to riches, and go, right, let's use these structures. And how many stories can we write down? So that any customer walks in, particularly these high value customers you're now looking for, yeah, and then think, okay, so we've got all these great customer stories. Let's be really focused now. Let's think about the high value customers where we did a tricky job because we ended up doing bespoke. So that might filter you into, like, I don't know, what, 10% of your customers? Okay,
Go on.
guessing. So
Sorry, what, what
again,
was
sorry, I lost you.
what was the question?
So if you were to say, right, we're trying to attract high value customers who want bespoke. We are going to have to tell them stories of similar customers, right? So out of the, I don't know how many, 5,000 customers you've dealt with in the last 10 years, you're only probably talking about maybe 5 or 10% of those customers who are close enough to your target customers.
Right.
Guessing? Yeah. So
Yeah.
you need to have a real focus as a group on, okay, we need the simple sales story and the rags to riches story for those high value customers, so that everyone in the team can tell at least one or two or three in a conversation. Okay, so that's your base level, and that's where I think you, as an organization, just need to be. So you can drop into the conversation naturally at any point. And what you do is a customer comes in, you're having a conversation with them, you find out some information, and really quickly you can go, okay, this reminds me of a time when, boom, story. And you need that across the organization. You don't need to be taking any kind of chances on that. And I think it does help to write them down.
Yeah, I think I would have to create a story bank for like all the customers we've dealt with.
Aim for those high value ones first. But also, look, you might have a customer in your archive from 8 or 9 years ago who's just worth going off and getting that story detail. Okay, that's one level. And then I think as you have those, then the next thing to think about is to start thinking about sort of the digital version of these stories. So you have conversational version, which you use in sales conversation. Then there's the digital version, which is, okay, when you're going out on a job. So you're going out to assess a kitchen before you even come up with a design, and start thinking, all right, well, what's the little story here? Well, this is chapter one of somebody's future kitchen. So I need to record chapter one. I need to get the before and after. Yeah. So I need to get the video. Yeah. So that if this story turns into one of these fantastic before and after, I've got the before. So you actually start thinking, what are the home makeover programs called in America? I don't know what the US versions are. Like where they make over somebody's home.
But like the television shows.
Yeah.
There's like I don't really watch them, but there's like Flip or Flop. I think was one of them.
Okay. Yeah.
They were like flipping houses.
Yeah, yeah. So essentially they follow the same pattern, which is before and after. Or actually, you know what they're usually looking for? They're looking for a man in a hole where you think everything's going to be fine, and then the roof falls in, and then they say, but start thinking, right? When you're out looking at a job, start thinking like a TV viewer. and thinking, well, okay, if this was the TV version, what would I need? Well, I'd need the before pictures, and then I'd need the design as we make it, and then I'd need the guys going in with the sledgehammers and smashing the old thing down, and then I'd need, yeah, and the ultimate shot is going to be the customer walking in for the first time when it's finished, and you're showing them for the first time the finished. Right. So start thinking, because each of those could be a little bit of video in their own right on your social media. Yeah. So this is what happens when the sledgehammers arrive. Boom. And so you're starting to actually start to think about how you tell the story. That's a really powerful tool, right? Because actually, what this does, it makes you think visually. Yeah. What am I pointing the camera at? Who am I pointing the camera at? You're making little movies, and stories work when they work like little movies. So, yeah. So I'd say, and then it's basically down to you. If you've got the story bank, which can use stories conversationally, and you start thinking like a TV producer with your visual storytelling, and then it may be you decide, okay, we know we've got stories, we can get good visual stuff. Maybe it's time to bring in somebody with a bit of expertise in a particular, for example, Instagram. If you think Instagram is where your target market live, then okay, well, maybe if you've not got Instagram expertise in house, well, maybe you need to bring somebody in who's got that level. I don't have that kind of expertise, because there's also, but there'll be people who do and who know exactly how to work on that kind of platform. And then you go, okay, well, this is like web design and advertising budget. This is a line in our budget, and we need to experiment with it, try these things, see what comes back. But the good thing will be is that you will have the basic raw material, because even in those three cards we've picked out, simple sales stories, rags to riches, and man in a hole, that will give you the raw material for your
Craig.
stories. Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah. Right. So, Arman, listen, what I would love to do is I'm going to just do a couple of quick screen grabs on your current homepage as it stands, so people can see. I mean, we've recorded a bit on this chat, but just so people can see where you're at now, because your homepage right now is very straightforward. It's a showroom full of things, and there are no people at all anywhere on your website. I can't see any people. Okay. Here's an interesting thing as well. Sorry, we've been talking all about customer journey, customer story, but the one thing, I'm just going to quickly look on your site again. The one thing that we don't see, because I think there are no people on your website. Well, guess what? There's a page here which says our story, and it says about us, yes, on your website, and it says about Polaris. And guess what? There are no people on that page either. Now, who do you think I should be seeing? Who in the About Us, who should I be seeing pictures of?
And the about us, I would assume like our team.
Why? Why do I want to see your team?
Because people connect with people. So once they see the face, maybe me and some of the designers, then they're gonna feel a little more connected and more like engaged.
And I'm about to hand you $50,000 of my hard-earned money, and you're going to hit my kitchen with a sledgehammer.
I want to know who's
I
doing it.
need. I want to know who's doing it,
Yeah.
and I want to know who's doing it. I want to know what makes you tick. I want to know what you get excited about. I want to know how are you an expert, right?
Right.
I want to know, like, before you bring that sledgehammer in. Yeah, but at the moment, all I'm seeing is an empty showroom. So do think about your own stories as well.
We'll do.
And there's one other card just before we wrap up. There is one other card which I think might help you with that. That might help you with that bit of the About Us website. Okay, there's a card called Trust Me, I'm an Expert, right? And on the back, it suggests different little ideas for what kind of story you can tell about yourself that builds up your character of the expert we can trust. Because an empty showroom full of bathrooms, I don't trust it in the way that I trust. Yeah, who's going to be actually swinging the sledgehammer? I need to know that.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's so true, and I want to trust you because you do good business. I want to trust your designer because your designer knows his or her stuff. And I want to trust the fitter because the fitter is, has smashed 1,000 bathrooms and has, built 1,000 more.
Yeah, yeah,
So
makes sense.
you got huge potential there.
Yeah.
So, Arman, what I'd really appreciate would be if, as you start to add these new bits to the website, if you could come back to me, and it might be weeks yet, it doesn't matter, but come back to me so we can do the contrast between what it is now with no people in it and what it will be.
Yeah, what I can do is once we start building the new website and have like a framework built out and maybe some content on a framework, maybe we can jump on another call, or I can send you some photos, and then you can kind of give me your ideas before we publish.
Yeah, brilliant. I'd love to do that. That's smashing. Right, best of luck, and I will hang up now, and I've got another call coming up, so I need to get off this call. But best of luck with it, and send me your progress.
Okay, Steve. And also, am I going to be able to get this recording like soon?
Yes, of course. Yes. We'll put it up on the Storyteller Tactics Slack channel, and it'll go up. If not tonight, then tomorrow.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I appreciate your time.
Smashing on it. My
Thank you.
pleasure. Take care. Bye bye.